They spent $500,000 on my sister's engagement party, crystal chandeliers, imported orchids, even a string quartet flown in from New York. But when my 3-year-old son needed life-saving surgery, they told me, "You'll figure it out." That night, I walked out of that ballroom holding my sick boy in my arms, and I never looked back. Hi, I'm Jenna. I'm a designer, a mom, and until that night, a daughter who kept hoping to matter. What happened after that call, the one where they begged me for help, was something even I didn't see coming. Before we jump into the story, if you don't mind, let me know where you're from by leaving a comment below. That way, I can send a special hello your way. Now go ahead, grab yourself a warm cup of water and find a comfy spot. It's time to begin the story. They say family is forever. I used to believe that. I clung to the idea like a child clutching a frayed blanket, worn thin but still wrapped in hope. Then one Tuesday afternoon in late October, that belief cracked under the weight of a gold-foiled envelope resting quietly on our kitchen counter. I'd just come back from picking Caleb up from preschool. He was still humming something about dinosaurs as he dumped a handful of red and yellow leaves on the floor, declaring them his autumn treasure. I knelt to help him sort the crumpled foliage into crispy and super crispy piles when I noticed it. Thick cardstock, ivory white, with metallic edges that shimmered under the light. My name, only mine, printed in elegant cursive. There was no return address, but I didn't need one. The seal said enough. A pale lavender wax stamp with a delicate E and R at its center. Elaine and Ryan. Of course, I didn't open it right away. Instead, I stood there staring, my fingers brushing over the embossed surface as if it might bite. A part of me had known it was coming. My mother had been dropping hints in her usual backhanded way. "Elaine's finally making a good match," she'd said the last time we spoke. 6 months ago, on a birthday call she nearly missed. I poured myself a cup of coffee that had gone lukewarm in the pot, leaned against the counter, and opened the envelope with more care than it deserved. Gold leaf lettering announced the engagement of Elaine Caldwell and Ryan Whitmore. A night to remember, it promised in looping script. A night for whom? The invitation sparkled, as if that might soften the blow. I scanned it again, slower this time, looking for the part that would include Eli's name. Or Caleb's. I found none. Not an oversight. A decision. I pressed my thumb into the card's corner until it bent slightly, then tucked it under the fruit bowl. Out of sight, but not quite out of mind. The air in the apartment smelled of Eli's Sunday marinara. He'd gotten off work early and was stirring a pot of sauce while humming to an old soul record, wearing the faded apron Caleb had painted in preschool. His quiet humming stopped when he looked up and saw my face. "Bad news?" he asked, wiping his hands on a towel. "It's from my parents," I said, trying to make my voice steady. "Elaine's engagement party. In December, he raised an eyebrow, waiting." I didn't say more. At dinner, Caleb launched into his usual 4-year-old monologue about finger paints and jelly sandwiches, giggling as he tried to twirl spaghetti like his dad. I smiled, I really did. But there was a familiar heaviness sitting behind my ribs, the kind that had no name, only weight. "Mommy," Caleb said between bites, "do you think Grandma will like my truck?" I looked up. "Your truck?" He nodded and held up a small blue toy pickup. "I'm going to bring it to show her, and she's going to give me a big hug, right?" I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Eli reached over and placed a hand on mine. His eyes said it all. "You don't have to go." But I wasn't ready to say it. Not yet. After Caleb went to bed, I sat alone in the living room, the lights dimmed low. The invitation was back in my hand, though I didn't remember retrieving it. I flipped it over once, twice again. Every spin dug a little deeper. My mind drifted, as it always did in moments like this. Back to the hallway of our old house. I had been 15, still in braces, still believing that effort would one day earn affection. I had just won the statewide architecture competition. I came home, glowing with the kind of joy that only first victories can bring. And there they were, balloons, cake, streamers. For Elaine. Most likely to smile, read her certificate from the yearbook committee. They popped champagne. I stood in the entryway clutching my forgotten trophy, smiling anyway. I smiled a lot back then. I don't remember when I stopped. Later that night, Eli joined me on the couch, pulling a blanket over both of us. "We could skip it," he said gently. "Stay here. Bake cookies with Caleb. Watch one of those terrible Christmas movies you pretend not to love." I leaned into him, grateful for his warmth, for his quiet understanding, and still, somewhere deep inside, something pulled. "I think I have to go," I said, the words leaving me like breath in the cold. Eli didn't argue. He just nodded and kissed the top of my head. I wasn't chasing their approval anymore. I told myself that over and over like a prayer. But the truth? Some part of me still hoped they'd see me, even if it was just for one night. There's a kind of silence that screams louder than words. That night, ours screamed from table 17. The hotel was glittering. Grand Hyatt Ballroom, December cold biting at our cheeks as we stepped through the revolving glass doors. Inside, the warmth hit instantly. Floral perfume, polished brass, soft jazz humming beneath the chatter of well-dressed strangers. Caleb tightened his grip on my hand, his little blazer slightly too big for his frame. His toy truck peeked out from the pocket, the chipped blue paint catching the chandelier light. "Do you think Grandma will have hot chocolate?" he asked, craning his neck to take in the velvet curtains and shimmering pillars. "Maybe," I said, offering a small smile. Eli rested a hand on my back. I could feel the tension under his calm surface. He hated these things, more for my sake than his, but he came anyway, for me, for Caleb. At the check-in table, a young woman with glossy red lipstick flipped through the seating chart. Her smile dimmed when she found our names. "Table 17, she said, then paused, eyes flicking to Caleb. "That way." She gestured toward the far corner. Her voice dropped slightly, like she hoped we wouldn't take it personally. We walked across the ballroom like guests in a museum where we didn't belong. Every table was a painting, gold runners, floating candles, crystal stemware. People leaned in, laughing at stories I would never hear. I caught glimpses of familiar faces, family friends, cousins I hadn't seen in years, all dressed for a magazine spread. They didn't notice us, or maybe they did and chose to look away. Table 17 was tucked behind a pillar near the service doors. The centerpiece wilted slightly, white lilies slumping under their own weight. The chairs were mismatched. One had a wobble. I helped Caleb into his seat, smoothing down his hair. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the toy truck, placing it carefully on the table in front of him. "She's going to love this," he whispered. I swallowed hard. "She'll see it," I lied. The guests around us were either distant relatives I barely remembered or vague acquaintances likely added for numbers. One woman next to me asked, "You're Elaine's cousin, right?" I didn't correct her. I tried to take in the room without flinching. At the center, beneath a pale pink rose arch, stood Elaine, all light and sparkle. Her dress clung like silk poured over a sculpture. Ryan, her fiancé, smiled down at her, hand resting on her back like she was glass he couldn't risk dropping. Corinne was radiant. Her silver hair was pinned in perfect waves, her makeup flawless, not a crease out of place. She stood close enough to the main cake table to bask in admiration, but far enough to let Elaine shine solo. Russell stood nearby, his posture straight, suit immaculate, his smile neutral as always. A memory flickered. I was 12, standing in the hallway with a report card full of A's. Elaine had just joined the student choir and sang off-key in a Christmas pageant. My parents bought her a snow globe. I got a nod. I pulled my eyes away. The string quartet started something classical. Waiters moved with ballet-like precision, balancing trays of tiny flutes and canapes. Caleb coughed. It started soft, then again, a dry, hollow sound. I turned toward him, rubbing his back. "You okay, sweetheart?" I asked. He nodded but coughed again, harder this time. Some heads turned. One woman across from us raised an eyebrow and shifted slightly in her seat. "It's just the air," I murmured. "All this perfume and dry heat." A waiter passed, hesitated, then continued. I caught him glancing back. Caleb clutched my sleeve. His skin felt warmer than it had earlier. Eli stood. "I'll get water." "I'll try talking to her," I said quietly, rising. The ballroom blurred slightly around the edges as I crossed it. Years of memories rustled behind every sequin and champagne flute. My shoes sank slightly into the plush carpet as I neared my mother. Corinne saw me approach. Her smile froze mid-sentence. She stepped away from the women she'd been chatting with, her fingers still delicately curled around a crystal glass. "Mother," I began, voice low. She looked over my shoulder, scanning. "Not here," she said quickly. "What's wrong?" "Caleb's not well," I said. "He needs surgery. We've been holding off, but we can't anymore. It's urgent." She blinked. "You chose not to tell us until now?" I didn't want to make it about me. We need help. Even a portion of it would make a difference. Her eyes darted again, landing on a group of guests. She leaned in, whispering, "Don't ruin this night, Jenna." "This isn't the time." My breath caught. "Mom, he's your grandson." "We've invested so much in tonight," she hissed. "Can we not, just this once, focus on something joyful?" I stood there, stunned. She stepped back with practiced poise and turned toward the rose arch. Elaine caught my eye. She lifted her champagne glass and with a smile, sharp as cut crystal, said, "Maybe next time pick a husband with better insurance." A few people around her chuckled. Caleb's cough rang out again, louder, followed by a wheeze that sent panic stabbing through my chest. I turned and walked quickly back toward our table. "I want to go home," he said, voice raspy. I reached down, picked him up, pressing his head against my shoulder. Eli had returned, holding a glass of water he never got to give. "We're leaving," I said simply. He didn't ask why. He just took my coat off the back of the chair and held it open. I didn't look back, not when we passed the rose arch, not when we crossed the ballroom, not even when we stepped into the cold night air. But I could still hear the laughter behind me, ringing like silver bells I no longer wished to follow. I didn't make a scene. I made a choice. Caleb's breath rattled against my chest as I stepped out of the ballroom and into the freezing Denver air. The doors behind me hissed shut, muffling the laughter and violins that had felt like knives against my skin. The wind sliced across my cheeks. Eli was already outside, pacing in front of the car. When he saw us, his jaw tightened. He opened the door without a word, and I slid into the back seat, still cradling Caleb. The warmth of the car didn't touch me. I pressed my hand to Caleb's forehead. He was burning up. His coughs came like broken hiccups, each one stealing more air than the last. Eli pulled into traffic. The city lights blurred past, neon signs, holiday decorations, headlights. I held Caleb tighter, whispering nonsense. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. You're okay. Just breathe with me." He whimpered, too tired to respond. My thoughts spun with no direction. I should have left sooner. I should have never brought him. I should have called the doctor last week when the cough first changed. My guilt crowded the space between my ribs. We reached the ER entrance. Eli parked half on the curb. "Go," he said, already moving to open my door. Inside, everything smelled of antiseptic and fear. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. A nurse in blue scrubs took one look at Caleb and called out for a stretcher. Questions swirled around me, voices too fast. I answered what I could. Eli handled insurance. I followed the stretcher, barely registering the paperwork shoved into my hands. The attending physician, a woman with tired eyes and a no-nonsense tone, led us to a curtained-off room. After a quick exam, she gave us the news. "Your son has a severe lung infection. He's stable for the moment, but surgery is necessary and urgent. I won't sugarcoat the risk. Waiting could cause permanent damage." I nodded, numb. "We'll need to secure payment first," she added gently. "The minimum deposit is $95,000. We'll do what we can, but the sooner we start, the better his chances. Eli and I looked at each other. Our savings had already been chipped away by tests, inhalers, emergency visits. I knew we didn't have it, and so I did the thing I told myself I wouldn't do again. I stepped outside into the cold hallway, pulled out my phone, and called my mother. It rang 4 times before she picked up. I could hear clinking glasses and muted jazz in the background. "Sabrina," she said, "is everything all right?" I hadn't gone by that name in years. "Mom, Caleb's in the hospital. He needs surgery. We need help. Just a portion, anything." There was a pause. Then softly, "I'm passing you to your father." A rustle. Then Russell's voice, flat as ever. "Jenna, what's this about?" I repeated the words, each one heavier than the last. Silence. Then, "We're already stretched thin after Elaine's event. You'll figure it out." The line went dead. I stared at the screen, the quiet hum of the disconnected call ringing in my ears. My hands shook, not from cold, but from something deeper, a kind of hollow rage. I opened the family group chat, the one Mom used to send Elaine's magazine spreads and holiday brunch photos. My fingers typed slowly, deliberately. "If there's anything human left in you, come to the hospital." I hit send. Then I turned the phone face down. I wasn't waiting for them. I already knew the answer. The hours that followed were a blur of clipped voices, white coats, Caleb's pale face, and the rhythmic beep of machines. I held his hand while he slept, his chest rising unevenly beneath the blanket. Eli sat on the edge of the chair, leaning forward, elbows on knees, not saying much. His silence said enough. No one came, no calls, no texts, no footsteps down the sterile hall. They hadn't just said no, they had erased us. By dawn, I knew what I had to do. I walked to the hospital's information desk and asked for a sheet of blank paper and an envelope. The clerk handed them over without question. Back in the waiting room, I sat alone under buzzing fluorescent lights. The vending machine hummed nearby. I unfolded the paper. My handwriting was shaky at first, but steadied with each line. "To those who still call themselves my family," I wrote, "tonight you had a choice, to choose pride or compassion. You chose pride." I paused. The words felt both too much and not enough. "You had a chance to be more than a last name. You failed. From this moment forward, you are strangers to me." Then one final sentence. "Blood without love is meaningless. I release you." I folded the letter slowly, pressed the crease down with my palm. The envelope felt heavier than it should. I scrawled their home address across the front. In the morning, I would drop it in the hospital's outgoing mail bin. I looked over at Caleb, still sleeping. His breathing was easier now, but far from fine. Eli had nodded off in the corner, one hand still holding my purse in his lap like a guard dog that refused to quit. I reached for my phone again, deleted the group chat. One by one, I blocked every contact. Corinne, Russell, even Elaine, birthday threads, holiday photo dumps, congratulations for nothing chains. Gone. Each deletion came with a strange kind of relief, like shedding a wet coat I hadn't realized was suffocating me. The weight didn't vanish, but it shifted, became mine to carry, not theirs to use. I wasn't theirs anymore, and maybe I never had been. There's a difference between being forgotten and being erased. My parents didn't forget me. They rewrote me out on purpose. The hospital felt less like a place of healing and more like a liminal space between before and after, before the call, before the silence, before the truth. After came in stages, slow, painful, necessary. Caleb had stabilized, just enough to buy us time. He was sleeping when I stepped outside the pediatric wing to stretch my legs, exhaustion knotting my shoulders. The February wind carried that awkward smell of leftover snow and asphalt. Somewhere beneath it, I thought I caught the faintest trace of spring. We had 2 days before the final deposit was due. Insurance covered some, but not enough. Our savings were near empty. Eli had stopped suggesting options. We both knew what was next. That night, I listed our car. Silver Honda, 7 years old, a good engine. It sold within hours to a quiet man who didn't flinch when he saw the booster seat in the back. Next came my grandmother's earrings, small emerald studs she gave me after graduation. I hesitated for all of 3 minutes before uploading the photos. Furniture from past design projects followed. Custom end tables, lamps with hand-stitched shades, reclaimed wood benches I'd loved too much to part with, until now. I documented each one carefully, pricing them below value. Within 3 days, the apartment looked thinner, lighter in a way, but every empty space carried weight. Still, people noticed. Monica Patel, a former client and now friend, sent a Venmo donation with no comment. Someone else left an envelope with a check. No name, no note, just the money. Small kindnesses stacked like bricks under my feet. One afternoon, while Caleb was napping and Eli fielded billing calls, I opened my laptop to respond to 2 longtime clients. The first, a boutique owner in Cherry Creek, was kind. "Whatever you need," she'd written. "I trust you." The second canceled without apology. "Given recent developments," she said, "we'll be moving in another direction." I stared at the email, my stomach sinking. Recent developments? What did that mean? I didn't have to wonder long. An old colleague, Beth from my early design days, called that evening. Her voice was hesitant. "Jenna, I thought you should know. There's talk, in some circles. They're saying you're leveraging Caleb's illness for donations, for sympathy." I didn't respond. I couldn't. "It's your parents," she added quickly. "Russell, mostly, but Corinne, too. At the garden club, at board luncheons. The wording they use, it's deliberate." I sat frozen on the couch. My laptop hummed quietly beside me. Outside, the wind shook a loose screen on the kitchen window. After the call, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even wake Eli. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water I didn't drink, then sat down and opened my laptop. My fingers hovered above the keyboard and then began typing. Subject line, truth meeting, message body, short, direct. To those who still believe in me or want to hear my side, meet me at Cafe Midtown, tomorrow at noon. Bring questions, I'll bring the truth. I sent it to 6 people. Not everyone would read it, not everyone would care. But 3 replies came in. 3 was enough. The next morning, I packed up my satchel with copies of hospital records, Caleb's diagnosis summary, and a timeline of our expenses. I wasn't dressing for sympathy, I was dressing for clarity. Dark jeans, clean blouse, no jewelry. At Cafe Midtown, I ordered black coffee and found a booth near the back. Monica arrived first, her coat still dusted with snow. Then came Louise, a realtor I once worked with on staging a historic bungalow. The third was someone I didn't expect, Nathan Kim, a quiet man who ran a niche architecture firm and barely spoke at conferences. They sat, they listened. I didn't beg, I didn't cry. I laid out facts, invoices, photos, emails. I told them what my parents had said, or more accurately, what they didn't say. The silence that spoke louder than anything else. "I'm not here to clear my name," I said at the end. "I'm here to make sure they don't erase me again." Monica nodded slowly. "You have more allies than you think." Later that evening, I sat in the dark, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound in our stripped-down apartment. Caleb was asleep again, his breathing steadier now. Eli was on the phone in the bedroom, coordinating one last payment extension. I opened my notes app, typed the words like carving them into stone. If they want a war of narratives, I'll bring facts and fire. I didn't feel brave. I felt ready. Some women crumble under pressure. I crystallized. By the time April warmed Denver's sidewalks, something in me had hardened, not out of anger, not even revenge, but from the raw clarity of what I had lost and what I refused to lose again. Cafe Midtown had become my makeshift office. The smell of burnt espresso and the murmur of laptops felt oddly comforting, like armor. I held small meetings there, speaking softly but firmly to anyone willing to listen. Clients, collaborators, even strangers. I didn't dramatize. I laid out truth, like blueprints. This isn't about a family squabble, I told them. It's about erasure. It's about being told again and again that your pain is an inconvenience. Most nodded. One woman, a gallery curator I had worked with years ago, wiped her eyes and said, "I have a sister like that." Word spread. Then the call came from Boulder, a prestigious developer, one I'd pitched to months ago before Caleb's health collapsed, called back. "We've reviewed everything," he said, "and we want you. Full design rights on the new complex." I didn't cry. I simply whispered, "Thank you," and felt something inside click into place. Not relief, not pride, something quieter, something solid. But peace was a short guest. The smears escalated within days. Social media posts from anonymous accounts, accusations I'd never imagined, that I was crowdfunding under false pretenses, that I staged the hospital photos, that I'd been manipulating people for attention. Even the word mother was questioned. One post read, "Real moms don't monetize their kids." Another, "Sad little sister trying to compete with golden girl Elaine." They were cruel, but they weren't random. Eli reached out to a friend, Trevor, who worked in cybersecurity. Within a few hours, he found the source. Same IP addresses, same network, repeated login locations. The trail led directly to Matthew's younger brother, Elaine's soon-to-be brother-in-law. Just a college kid with too much free time and apparently a request to handle the Jenna thing. I stared at the screenshots, chat logs, profile setups. The wording matched what I'd seen whispered behind my back for weeks. They hadn't just slandered me, they had coordinated it. I called Monica. She didn't gasp. She didn't pause. She said, "I'll see you in the office in an hour." Monica Patel had always been more fire than water. That afternoon, she flipped through the printouts briskly, making notes in the margins. "Will file under defamation, harassment, and tortious interference with prospective business relationships," she said, tapping her pen. "I'll send legal notices to all parties involved, including Quentin and Elaine. Whether or not they directly posted, they orchestrated." By that evening, 3 thick envelopes were in transit via courier. The same night, I sat down with my laptop and called the Boulder developer. I told him everything. I expected silence, maybe even a polite withdrawal. Instead, he chuckled. "Miss Caldwell," he said, "I've been in this business 20 years. You think this is the first time someone tried to kneecap a designer they couldn't control?" I laughed softly. For the first time in months. He continued, "If anything, this tells me you've got guts. We still want you, maybe even more now." I thanked him, closed my laptop, and sat for a long while in the quiet of our apartment. Caleb was asleep in the next room. Eli was in the kitchen folding laundry. The floor lamp cast a soft golden hue across our pared-down living room. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Then my phone buzzed. Monica. Her text was short. "They want to settle quietly." Low 6 figures. I stared at the screen. 6 figures. Enough to cover Caleb's bills. Enough to stabilize the business. Enough to finally breathe. But I didn't feel relief. I felt insulted. As if they could buy my silence like a discounted sofa. I typed back, "I'm not here for hush money. I'm here for truth." I put the phone down, walked to my desk, opened my email, drafted a note to a local reporter I'd met years ago at a fundraising gala. Subject, interview request, the real story. I attached timelines, screenshots, records, no dramatics, no flames, just facts. Then I hit send. It wasn't CNN, it wasn't national, but it was local. And local is where they live. And where, if truth had its way, they would finally fall. Forgiveness doesn't mean reopening the door. Sometimes it's sealing it shut. forever. The late afternoon sun spilled across the hardwood floors of our new home, catching the dust motes dancing lazily in the quiet. Boulder in the fall was gentler than Denver, slower, more spacious. Our house wasn't grand, no sweeping staircases or chandeliered foyers, but it had wide windows, clean air, and peace. Eli was in the kitchen prepping dinner, something with garlic and lemon. Caleb sat at the table, coloring a dragon with red wings and blue flames. The smell of fresh paint still clung faintly to the baseboards. We were just living, unremarkable, unburdened. My phone rang from the hallway counter, a number I didn't recognize, Colorado area code. I hesitated, hand hovering, then tapped answer. The voice that broke through was raw, trembling. "Sabrina, it's Mom." I hadn't heard her voice since the hospital. For a second, the sound of it untethered me. It didn't belong here, not in this home filled with light and safety. I waited, saying nothing. We're losing the house," she said. "There's a foreclosure notice. The business is gone. We have nowhere to go." I listened. The silence on my end must have unnerved her because she rushed forward. "I know things were said, but we're still family, Jenna. Blood is blood. Don't let this be how it ends." That word, family, rattled through me like a hollow drum. I thought of Caleb's voice months ago, small and confused. If they're family, why do they act like strangers? Back then, I didn't have the answer. I do now. I stepped into the living room, looking at the framed picture on the mantel. Caleb's 5th birthday. Just him, Eli, and me blowing candles on a homemade cake. No gold trim, just frosting and joy. I held the phone closer. "You taught me what family isn't," I said quietly. "That's why I built one without you." I didn't yell. I didn't explain. I hung up. Then I deleted the number, the call log, the voicemail that pinged seconds later. I emptied the trash folder, and for the first time, I didn't feel grief. I felt stillness. I slipped on my jacket and called out, "Park time, bud." Caleb's face lit up. He grabbed his hoodie and ran ahead of me, the door swinging open with a creak we hadn't gotten around to oiling. The park was just a few blocks away, nestled between cottonwoods turning amber. A few neighborhood kids were already on the swings. Caleb ran toward them, his laughter rising into the crisp air. I followed slowly, settling onto a bench near the edge, letting the breeze wash over me. Monica's final email had arrived that morning. Subject line, "Case closed. Body. Elaine's engagement dissolved. Stores shuttered. Settlement processed. Their empire, as brittle as their empathy, had collapsed. No drama, no headlines, just quiet endings." I pulled out my journal, worn leather, bent corners. I flipped to a blank page and wrote, "They made me small. I made myself free. No one would read it but me." That was enough. Across the field, Caleb flew down the slide, hair wild, cheeks flushed. He ran over, breathless. "Mommy, this is the best day ever." I looked at him, really looked, and felt the words rise like sunlight. "It really is," I said, and for the first time, I meant it. As I watched Caleb's laughter dance across the park, I realized peace doesn't always come from being understood. It often comes from choosing not to be broken. I didn't win a battle. I simply stopped showing up for the war. In life, love that must be earned again and again isn't love. It's performance. And family, I've learned, is built not by blood, but by presence, by kindness, by those who stay when things get hard. If this story stirred something in you, I'd be honored to hear your thoughts. Sometimes, just telling our stories is the first step toward healing.